Hey dancers, it's Kirsten. Welcome back to the Confident Dancer YouTube channel or podcast if you're listening there. I think you're really going to enjoy today's conversation with Sarah-Gabrielle Ryan, who is a principal dancer with Pacific Northwest Ballet. We had such a great conversation about her personal journey and some big mindset shifts that really helped her to get to the level that she's at now, and not only just get to the level of principal dancer, but really thrive and excel in her journey. I think there are lots of challenges she mentioned that many of you might relate to, and you'll find the lessons and insights that she can share about what's helped her through those challenges, like body image struggles or performance anxiety. I think those will also really help you and encourage you as well, even if just to know that you're not the only one who goes through these things. So I really appreciate her, not only for how incredible of an example she is just as a human and the humanity and integrity with which she approaches her work, but also she just has some really, really great insights to share. So again, I think you'll really enjoy this. Stay through till the end. I think it'll be really worth your time, especially since towards the end of our conversation, we really touch on what makes a dancer a true artist and what mindset shifts have helped her to really step into a level of artistry that have prepared her to do principal roles. So whether you want to be a principal one day or not, I think that part of the conversation will really resonate with you and encourage you. So enjoy. Let's get into it. Hi Sarah, welcome to the channel. I really appreciate you being here, and I'm excited to get into our conversation.
I'm really excited too. I was just saying I have so much love and appreciation for what you do and your platform. And I wish that when I was a student, I think there are so many resources now for these types of conversations, especially on social media, which is great because that's where most people are these days anyway. So thank you for doing this for the dance community.
Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot. Also, I think it would be really fun to comment that you and I crossed paths like 100 years ago at the Ballet summer program, where I think I was like 16. How old were you? Do you remember?
Little. I was like 13.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you were probably in a higher level or something like that.
No, I was
13.
I think I was just obsessed with like all the older students, and I think I like remembered and friended all of you, and I'm glad I did because it's so nice to keep up and see how everyone's doing. But
that's why I always tell people, be nice to the people you meet, because soon enough you'll wake up, you're 30 years old, and then you're back, you're talking to them. So yeah, I just love that that's how the ballet world works, and it's like, you know, we do have such a tight-knit community, and so many of us dancers go through really similar experiences. So it's really fun to be able to reconnect with people like you, and I've reconnected with so many other people I met at like Houston Ballet in 2008. And just to be able to talk and totally catch up and know that we've shared this crazy experience of being a dancer and wanting to talk about the ins and outs of it.
Definitely. Cool. Very small world and very niche. Yeah.
So tiny. So back to you. I'd love to just start with an overview of your journey. You know, kind of, you can go into as much or as little detail as you want, but what has been your training and career path up until this point of being a principal dancer?
Yeah, I'll kind of give the spark notes because I'm sure we'll get into a lot of it later. But I'm from Philadelphia, born and raised. I started my training at a small studio, corner Philly, like Northeast Philly, called Dance Kids with a Z. It's where I did like my tap, my jazz, my ballet, all that good stuff. And then I was about 5 years old. My teacher was like, she takes this way too seriously, like the ballet specifically. Send her somewhere else, like send her where it's going to be really strict. Like, it was more just fun, and we were doing a lot of competitions. And so I stayed with them and did comp until I was like 12. But 5 is when I was sent off to the rock school for the first time. And I was there for about 10 years. I was like 14, I believe, when I started supplementing Pennsylvania Ballet's core, now Philadelphia Ballet. So I started doing like Snow and Flowers and their Nutcracker and all that good stuff. So then when I was 15, the Philadelphia Ballet reopened their brand new school. And so I ended up going to them because I was dancing with them all the time anyway. And it was getting really hard to like do my training at Rock and then also go be in all these company performances. So went to School of Pennsylvania Ballet at the time, and it was great. I ended up supplementing a lot of their rep. I was in nearly every program. And then finally, when I was 17, I believe, I joined the second company. And I was there for 2 seasons. And then we had like a whole shifted director change. And I had it's always hard when you're in those positions just because everything's changing and it's never really your choice. So I had just done a summer intensive at Pacific Northwest Ballet. And I just loved it. And I felt really comfortable, really welcome. I loved the rep. I loved Peter Bowl, our director, just very kind. And it was something that it felt special for a company. I just never seen someone run a company like that from a very human perspective. And so I just like sent him an email out of the blue one day and I was like, I loved it. Can I please come audition? And they were on tour in New York that very season. So it was very lucky. I went into class and yeah, he took me in. I've been there kind of ever since.
Wow, that's amazing. Good for you for just reaching out. Isn't it amazing to have such a pivotal life experience come from an email?
I say it all the time though, like what is the worst that could happen? That like someone just says no, that's it. You don't have anything to lose. I do it all the time. Like just reach out. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. That I've had so many of my own opportunities in my coaching business or speaking opportunities come from just throwing something out there.
Definitely, yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, especially because at that time, like I had never left Philly. I was very lucky that, most people have to leave home to continue training. I had everything there. I thought I was going to dance in my city my entire life. And so I never even really considered other companies. And I definitely didn't think that I'd join PNB. Like for the longest time, they were known as a tall woman company. Like I was not that. So it was kind of just like a shot in the dark. And I was very lucky.
Wow, that's wild. Yeah, I love to tell dancers, don't tell yourself no first. When we hold ourselves back, it's really you rejecting yourself.
Yeah.
Because we're afraid of letting someone else reject us. And it's like, wow, what's really worse? Doing it to yourself.
Absolutely.
Maybe giving someone else the chance to say yes. I know it's like a vulnerable thing, but yeah, especially in an email format, not a lot to lose.
Not a lot.
What rank did you start in PNB?
I joined as an apprentice.
Okay.
I did 1 year as an apprentice and then I think like 5-ish years in the corps maybe. And then I did 2 years as a soloist.
Okay, 2 years as a soloist. And then how long have you been a principal?
Just this past November, I got promoted. So.
Oh my gosh.
So
what's that been like?
Like getting promoted to principal or just. It was weird. It was like, so Peter does this thing where he kind of tells you a whole season in advance. So I actually performed my first full-length ballet the season before. It was in like February. And our contracts had to come out to us like the following week. And he told me the night after my first Giselle performance that I would be promoted the following season. And then it's just kind of like a budgetary thing about when that promotion gets to happen. So it was just a few months of waiting, which was, well, the entire season, then a few months into the next season that I had to wait. But it was just like knowing, and it's kind of a secret, kind of not really, And then, yeah, finally I got promoted and I was like, okay, well, a lot of the things this past season were repeats of pieces that we had done recently. So it was like a lot of parts that I had already done that I was doing again, but then my rank went up and it just felt like this weird thing because you expect to feel this shift, but really it's just you were doing the work and that's why you got the promotion. But I think that was a big mental thing for me where I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something different, but I'm doing the same thing. So that was the biggest challenge this past season for sure.
Wow, that's a mind game to know
Yeah,
and then to be doing the things that you would be doing as a principal without the label, and then you get the label, and then you're doing the same
you're
thing.
doing the same thing. And I was like, wait, I thought like you expect, I guess, what do they say? Like expectation is the thief of joy. I had that all season, I think, like thinking that I was supposed to be doing more, but I was already doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it makes sense that a lot of times I think there's this mentality of a label causes things to change or it causes you to feel different. I think that's an expectation I've had in the past.
Mhm.
But suddenly, when I am a professional dancer, I will dance differently. I will
Yeah,
feel differently. All of a sudden, just life will be magic.
sure. I think I did feel it differently, just like in myself taking class every day. Um, it was more so I felt it was a level of responsibility to have the rank. So, or it was just like, you're working every day for yourself, but then it was like, I'm in class every day because that's what I hope other dancers will look up to and want to go to class every day. Or I work a certain way because I hope to be a role model for the dancers around me and
Yeah.
they'll understand that that's how I got here. Like there was a little bit of that where I felt responsible for the younger dancers around me, which
Yeah.
was really cool. I actually loved it because I was like, oh, I have the chance to set the standard that we want for this company. So that was nice. And that felt in my control rather than, casting, which is out of our control. So,
Yeah, that's beautiful that you took such ownership of the role and like you brought your integrity into it in a way that's meaningful for you. I
yeah, that
think
felt
a lot
good.
of times, like what gets us to the next level, whatever the next level is like embodying that next level before you have the label.
Mhm.
So, do you feel like there were things you did as a soloist that were kind of with that principal dancer mentality that then helped you to be qualified for that role? Or what do you think it is? What mentality shifts helped you to?
I don't know. I feel like as a soloist, everything felt a little bit more selfish, honestly, because it was this like, you're in that in between where you're trying to prove yourself as to why you're a soloist, but then, um, you also want that next promotion too. And so everything felt like I was going in to work to either prove myself or work to move up or you're in that position as a soloist where you don't quite know what your roles are going to be because they are testing you out with principal things, but you will still do like core swans. You're in this like limbo. And so everything felt like uh, working for more selfish reasons. And now I feel like because I'm not, now it's just working to better myself and to better the people around me and to better the company. And it feels a lot better now. I will say, I don't know if it's necessarily a soloist mindset
Yeah.
to feel selfish or if that was just my mindset at the moment because it was also just coming out of COVID. So everything felt like
Yeah.
I just want to get myself back to dancing how I felt that I was dancing before, which wasn't the most realistic mindset coming back. Took me even still, I feel like I'm still recovering from COVID, honestly. Like just clawing back to the strength that I felt before we were dancing in our house for like a year and a half. Um, but I'm sure that was also a part of it, like just getting back onto stage again and trying to reclaim what I felt as a dancer.
Yeah. Oh, COVID, such
Yeah,
a crazy time. Yeah.
I
And
know.
I'd love to hear about what kinds of responsibilities you feel there are as a principal that are quite different from either corps de ballet or
Mm.
soloist positions.
Yeah, I don't know if it's in my head, but I really felt like once I was a principal, people were watching. Like they wanted to know how I was going to take on certain roles. Like they saw me take on Giselle as a soloist, and it was just a big opportunity. So everyone was just like, "This is great." And but then this past season, I debuted Capella, Swanilda, and I think everyone was like, "Okay, how is she going to approach this one?" Because it wasn't new anymore to be doing full lengths. It was um, an expectation, and I think I felt the eyes on me of like, how are you going to approach this? And so again, I feel like a lot of how I'm approaching everything now is with the idea of like, okay, well, I can't go tell a young dancer who's debuting something to just dance and don't worry about it and don't, you don't have to get worked up and you don't have to beat yourself up after and then do that myself. Like, I can't be hypocritical and tell someone not to be a perfectionist and then finish variation and be really mad. I can't do that because they're watching. And if I show that I'm really upset every time I do the smallest thing wrong or that I'm fixating on these like really small things, right? We get so worked up and it's always very minuscule. And I felt like I couldn't do that without, being a bad role model for the dancers that I'm trying to look out for. So honestly, it was probably good. It's good for me to be in this position because I do have a very perfectionist mindset. I'm very prone. I'm very guilty of it. So it's nice to like looking in a mirror with some of these younger dancers. I'm like, oh crap, you're just like me. I have to be better.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I really respect how you think beyond yourself in your role. And that sounds really meaningful in the way that you talk about it. And I'm wondering if that also feels freeing for you in some ways to kind of get outside of yourself and have a purpose beyond just being perfect technically or something like that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's very fulfilling beyond just my own dancing, but also it is good to look at what's happening around me. And I'm like, I can't believe you're just upset over messing up that little step. And I'm like, oh, that's how I look. Like, yeah.
Oh my gosh. How do you balance this sense of responsibility with having grace for yourself, though? Because this sounds like a lot of pressure sometimes.
I don't know. I kind of like it. It feels so much better to be looking out for other people, like thinking of it in a grander scheme than it did thinking just about myself. Again, like the very selfish way, it became very introspective. Every little thing that I did in class that I didn't like was like the end of the world. It wasn't healthy. And I think being able to look at what's going on around me has made it ballet overall just more fulfilling.
Yeah, that is so beautiful to hear. And you are already setting such a good example. Like, I know in your company, I'm not there, so I trust that everything is true. I believe you. But also, I'm so grateful that you're sharing this on my channel so more dancers can hear it because what I've seen as like a genuinely important step in building authentic confidence as a dancer is getting your ego in check. That voice in your head that's like, everyone's watching you, everything is about you, you have to be perfect so that people think you're legit or they like you. And so one of the direct steps dancers can take, which you're embodying so beautifully, to like get their ego in check, is start to remember it's actually not all about me and to connect to something bigger than themselves. Yeah. And it just, like you're talking about, it seems to put things into perspective so beautifully so that we're not just caught in our heads in our own little world where things can easily be so blown out of proportion.
Yeah, definitely.
I applaud you for that. It's beautiful.
We're still learning, but it's definitely trying to be the dancer that you want to look up to. It's been a cool journey.
Totally. If you don't mind, I'd love to get into some of the challenges.
Be ready? Yeah.
Yeah, because every single dancer has their own battle to go through, whether it's an injury or like performance anxiety or body challenges, all sorts of things. So what have been some of the challenges that you've faced in your journey?
I've had it all. I've had I think the biggest one that's gonna stick with me forever, and it is important that I say this because sometimes I do catch myself, I'm talking about being this role model, but I do catch myself talking about my body in certain ways that I'm like, ooh, how did that just sound to the next generation? So I'm trying to be more aware of that because I don't think that it's ever going to go away, honestly. The comments about my body just started very young. And I think I was like 10 maybe when just little comments, it was supposed to be endearing, like, look at that little Winnie the Pooh belly, things like that. And then they just kind of got worse and worse. I think the worst of it was probably around 13 years old, um, where, I had teachers wanting me to lose 10 pounds, and there wasn't 10 pounds to even lose. Like, you're 13, your
And you're
body's
going
changing.
through puberty.
Exactly.
Oh,
So I think there was like a lot of that. And then I started to gain a little bit more confidence when I did switch over to Pennsylvania Ballet, supplementing the core just because I was surrounded by women. I think a lot of what was happening to me is I did hit puberty pretty young, and I was surrounded by very tiny
hmm.
bodies that hadn't gone through puberty yet. I think I was like 10, honestly, when it hit me. So I think that was some of it. And I always looked maybe a little bit older, so people felt it was okay to make certain comments about my body. But the diets were extreme, especially when, you're fully in school and you're just trying to keep up with all the normal 13-year-old things. But
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know if it was also just I was dancing more when I was doing company rep, and there was just a lot more. I had a big shift in confidence, and that was really good for me. And then, sure enough, when after my 2 years in the second company and our director change happened, it all just came rolling back. That director didn't like my body, right? It's so subjective, and I get it. It is what it is. But it was like, oh, I thought I finally got somewhere, and like I was over it,
Yeah.
and then it all just rolled back to the front where I was hearing it all over again. My body wasn't quite right. My thighs were big. Like anything that could be said was being said. And so that's when I was like, I need to go somewhere where, I was able to find it once before to change my environment that was accepting of my body. So I just have to do it again. And I did. And it's been great. But it doesn't mean that those comments don't still, linger in my mind, and we're staring at ourselves in the mirror all day. So
Totally. Thank you so much for being open about that because I can guarantee there are so many people watching and listening who are like, that sounds like my story. And it's so heartbreaking to hear that girls like you get comments so early where you need to be allowed to just let your body develop healthily. And I mean, now as an adult, I don't know if you've gotten into this, but I've been thinking a lot more about like my reproductive health and my overall hormone health and how like that is not just a key to like building a family one day, but also just being a thriving, healthy woman with like literally everything in your body working properly. And so to get these comments at an early age that distort your view of yourself and they distort your relationship with your body, where it's some sort of like enemy to beat, something to tame and to manipulate, instead of something to work with and cherish, like as a team member. So I'm really sorry that you went through that. That sucks. I know it's like, on one hand, it's like we could say it is what it is, and I'm thinking like it shouldn't be what it is. This is terrible.
yeah.
And on the other side of it, it's really wonderful that you were able to identify the value of your environment and what influence that has on either helping or hindering your own relationship with your body.
Yeah.
How has what has really helped you beyond just changing your environment to develop a healthy body image?
Mm. Um, yeah, the environment's the biggest thing because if anything, it's just coming from inwards that, I'm criticizing myself. But I think just starting to view my body more as an athlete and less as something that's supposed to look a certain way has been really helpful. Um, I know when I feel strong. I know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm eating when I feel strong. I think all of those things, it brings me more power knowing that I I know how to feel myself in the way that feels best, and that's that's just what I'm going to do.
Mm.
And I mean, I also use like a lot of my resources. We have a therapist at P&B that we have access to. I love following like the Instagrams that have a lot of like very honest conversations about body and mindset. Um, I'm not sure if I can think of anything else, but it is like a daily thing. It's a journey for sure.
Yeah, and those are beautiful steps to start taking to like reclaim that relationship and that view of your own body. And whether the comments from your past are about your body, or for some dancers, it's you started late, or your hips aren't the right shape, your legs aren't the right shape, whatever it is sadly very normal for those voices to become internalized. And thankfully, like there are really wonderful modalities for healing that. And I've certainly experienced that myself with all sorts of like whack beliefs. I just internalized from like some really rough training experiences. I thought like one really big struggle for me was anxiety around performing. And it got so bad that like I couldn't focus in class because I was so like hyper vigilant about everything and in such a stressed out state that I started to believe like I'm just not cut out for this. I'm stupid and I can't learn quickly. Like, what's wrong with me? Something must be wrong with me. And going on my own healing journey of like speaking openly about the words, speaking openly about that, and starting to like pursue resources. It's like such a beautiful thing. And then to be open about it can like give someone else hope that, hey, they face this and no one's perfect and no one's like arrived, but still there's hope for like continuing to dance and thriving in that journey. So anyway, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for sharing. I mean, I also had really bad, really bad performance anxiety for a little bit there where I was like, this isn't going to work. Like it was stealing the joy of performing. I love performing. And it just kind of was getting to the point of if I spend more time feeling anxious and horrible, and then I only feel good like for a second if I thought I did well at the end, like it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So that was another big thing I had to work through. It was more recent, actually, I would say. My first season as a soloist, like I was saying, everything was selfish. Everything was about like proving a point. And I hated performing, and which is so sad because that's why I do this.
Yeah. It's so interesting that anxiety can just pop up randomly. It feels random after like you've been dancing your whole life, and then all of a sudden dread, fear, horrible, night sweats, all of these horrible things around performing. And it's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So what changes do you think contributed to you suddenly experiencing performance anxiety, and what helped you to resolve that?
I think even before COVID, actually, I started to get to a point where I was getting very stressed out before shows. And I think it was because I was getting more opportunities. And the first few times I got opportunities, I remember just being like, yes, I love dancing. This is great. Like, and I could have been a mess. I don't know. I will never look at those videos, but I had a great time and I didn't care. And then slowly the opportunities kind of kept coming. And then I was like, okay, so you like expect a certain level of me now. And I think it was more like as I said, like people didn't like my body. If I did anything like really well, they were shocked because they couldn't even see my dancing. They just saw this body they didn't like. So I think I spent so long being like this underdog. And then I got into an environment where a director actually liked me, and then he kept giving me things. And then I wasn't an underdog anymore. He was like, oh, this is what you can do, and this is what I expect of you. And I was like, oh, now I have to like deliver. Like it's not proving myself, it's delivering something. And I think that was starting to get in my head, like, oh, these opportunities are going to keep coming. What does this mean? And then you start freaking out. And then it was probably good that COVID hit because it blew that over. But then you come back and you're just starting to get back on stage again. I think that was a weird thing because we spent so long from the stage, away from the stage, that we kind of had to like retrain our minds. Because I talk about this all the time. Like I took ballet class nearly every day during COVID, but the mental strength of performing is another muscle. Like I talk about it all the time. If it gets out of practice, like it's really hard. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I think it was just like retraining myself how to perform again. And even like this past season, I was like, oh, my mental stamina is not up to par for the roles that I need to be doing right now. Like I had the realization. And I think the only way to get over it for me at least this past season was to just get over it. Like I just had to keep putting myself out there, had to be okay if I messed up a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
it's such it's a muscle. It's real.
And sometimes exposure therapy is the most effective therapy.
Exactly. I was like, this is what it is. And, I had other resources, but.
Yeah, that's really good. I love how you brought up this term mental stamina. What does that mean to you?
For me, it was like, even, like I was saying, by the end of the season, I debuted Capella, and everything else up until that season for me, that rep for me was very slow. And so maybe I was in like one piece out of three pieces on a rep, or, so everything was just like short and sweet. And I did my little bit and then I was gone.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I had to carry a ballet and I was like, I am not ready for this. I'm not cut out. I haven't done it since last February. Like, so I think the idea is that you always want to go into your rehearsals as if you're performing a little bit, but I really had to hold myself to that. Like one of our Donald Bird, he runs Spectrum in Seattle. He's amazing. But one of my favorite things that he's ever said was rehearsals are to find out all the ways that something can go wrong, so that when you get on stage, you're not surprised. And I think it also changed my mentality in rehearsals, because it was like if something went wrong, you found a way out of it, and now if you get on stage and that happens, you know a way out of it.
Yes.
That was really good for me. But I think it was approaching every rehearsal with that in mind, so that I was kind of building this like, okay, well, we know how to get through this act and we know what we need to do here, or if this goes wrong, this is how we fake it to make it. Honestly, I know people don't like that being said, but sometimes you're not going to stick the landing and you have to find your way out. And just knowing, like, don't freak out. There's a way. And I felt like that was me training my mind again to be able to go for that long and remain calm and perform.
Yeah, that is so good. I'm really glad that we went into just that term, because there was so much you just said that is actually information I share with clients all the time. And some of the strategies you just mentioned, like one of them I would call a solutions focused mindset. You first reframed the meaning of mistakes from like bad, taboo, never make them ever, they're just universally horrible, to something that is just a reminder to create a solution around it.
Yeah.
And that frames it more as an opportunity, and it normalizes the mistake, so you're not having such a reaction around it, so that then you can have enough mental space left over to be like, okay, what can I do to move forward if and when that happens?
Yes.
When that mindset around mistakes isn't necessarily being negative and being like, I'm going to mess up. It's just actually acknowledging, you know what, that does happen, and here's what I can do if it does happen. Yes. So it reminds you, I have options. I have control over the situation. And that's something that builds that trust with yourself and the psychological safety around performing, so your brain isn't like, this is a threat, this is horrible. What are you doing?
Full flight mode. Yes.
Escape.
You said that far more eloquently than I did, but yes. Exactly what I was going for. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you demonstrated it beautifully. And it's amazing how a lot of these solutions are actually intuitive when you go looking for them. A lot of what I share with people isn't actually rocket science. It's just a very distilled form of things that if you went around and experimented with things and really became a little detective around about it, you'd find a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's so cool that you discovered that mindset that works a lot better for you. And it sounds like when the anxiety was popping up for you around the time when you were performing these soloist roles, it sounds like mentality around like even who you are, going from an underdog to, oh, now I'm this. And then there was a new story around it. Like now I'm not proving, I'm having to deliver. It seems like that just would understandably create more anxiety for you because the expectations and the narrative around it is so different. It really goes to show the power of perspective, right?
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. I'd love to hear what other really pivotal lessons or like, yeah, perhaps like lessons you've learned from peers or just throughout your own journey or even teachers, choreographers that have really helped you and maybe influenced how you approach your dancing.
Hmm. Loaded.
I know it's a pretty big picture.
Oh yeah. I'm like trying to think. Honestly, I just feel like I have been very lucky at PMB to have a team that does believe in me, which is so nice because it's again like wasn't what I had for so long. So it's nice to feel like there's a group behind you who wants to support you and make you this thing. I think that's how all dancers are made. There's a group of people that believe in you, and that's why you're able to go on. Um, and I think, yeah, just learning to trust myself, honestly. Um, they've all encouraged me to do that.
Mm.
And I do reach out to like a lot of resources that we have. Like I said, our therapist at PV, Josh Spell, he's amazing. He's um, always my like go-to person when I'm struggling with performance anxiety or body image, whatever it is. And he's given me a lot of good tools, whether it's just like focusing on things that are in your control or the staying present in the moment. I have like a calm meditation that I follow before all of my performances now, on the Calm app. It's actually really good. I should find it. I think it's called like the Performance Series by Tamara Levitt. Um, I like strongly recommend that to people. I'm trying to think of like, yeah, what have I learned from the dancers around me? Because I think most of the time we're all actually going through the same thing. And that's been really beautiful to see. It's like what we're talking about right now, but I see it with, um, principal dancers that I looked up to my whole life. And then we
Mhm.
chat and they're actually feeling the same way. And I don't know if they just cover it up better or, or if like I also come across like I have it under control, but I think we're all just kind of swimming, trying to stay
Yeah,
ashore.
we are all just people. And
Yeah.
at the same time, I don't mean to just focus on the struggles with things. I think sometimes I'm very curious about the challenges because they're not often talked about, and then what solutions have been really helpful for you in your journey. But I imagine there also are so many beautiful things about your experience as a principal dancer. And for so many people, that's like really a dream come true, even just to make dancing your job. So I'd love to hear what are some of the things you really love about being a principal?
Oh gosh. I mean, obviously dancing certain roles has been, a dream. I think getting to do Giselle right away, as my first full length. I mean, that was probably one of my biggest dream roles for the longest time.
Awesome.
Um, so that's been amazing to feel like. Also, I just love storytelling. So I think anytime I have the opportunity to do that, it's really exciting. Um, and I do love, like we were talking about, the responsibility I feel in it. And I think specifically the reason that I feel it is because growing up, my favorite dancer in Pennsylvania Ballet was Arancho Ochoa, and she just, the way that she presented herself every day was like she was there and she was ready to work, and she had so much integrity and she worked really hard. And I remember thinking, like, that's what a ballerina is. And so it's been cool to think back of all the dancers that I looked up to as a kid, even not just as a core member or um, any of those ranks, but just thinking about what I actually thought of when I thought of a ballerina. And it wasn't necessarily like, yeah, I loved watching them on stage, but I loved watching how they were in the studio, how they interacted with their peers and choreographers, and how they spoke to the people around them.
Yeah.
I think that's more what's been more interesting and exciting to try to embody than the roles.
Oh, that's so inspiring that you have such a holistic view of the role of, well, just being the kind of dancer you want to be. That image you have in your head, it includes so much more than just having the best technique, getting the roles, or just the dancing aspect. There's this really cool human impact element. And I would not be surprised if you have so many little fans in the PNB school and like younger dancers in the company. I'm sure they really appreciate what you embody and what you bring into your work. So I applaud you for that. It's very exciting.
I do like that you say like it's more than just the technique, because I think that's part of it. I never felt like the most technical dancer. I'm teaching at a summer course right now here in Philly, Metropolitan Ballet, and yeah, one of the things I'm just trying to get them like out of their shells in the way that they approach movement. It's very technical and it's very studious and it's really good. But I was like, but we're dancing. Like, this is supposed to be fun. Give me a performance. Like, and it's just so funny because we're taught to work a certain way and it feels very rigid. But I'm like, it doesn't need to be, because that's not what we're going to do on stage and that's not what the audience is going to connect with. And I was like, look, I'll be honest, maybe I'm just trying to get you to dance like bigger because I've always hidden behind that. I always felt very exposed in class. I am not a class dancer. I love being on stage. So I do think some of it might also be like distraction. One of my favorite rehearsal directors at Pennsylvania Ballet would always say, if they're looking at your feet, you're doing something wrong, which I loved.
Yes. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with the we gotta dance, people kind of mentality, because we can just miss the point.
Yeah, totally.
With technique. And some people actually hide behind their perfect technique.
Yeah.
You know?
Good for them.
Good for you. I don't personally know what that feels like. I don't. I mean, it seems like even if you do have some hidden reason, like I'm gonna hide behind why you dance like that, it seems like it's still working. So I think we could listen to you and take some pointers, because you
gotta lean into our skill sets.
We really do. Yes. Yeah. I've thought a lot about the question of what makes a dancer an artist. Years ago, especially when I was in college, we had some really good discussions around that. And an idea that I came to is, when I really think of the dancers I look at, and I just think artist.
Yeah.
They are, yes, creating beautiful movements with their bodies. Like, their shapes are beautiful, but there's this autonomous intention behind the movement that communicates something that means more than just the movement itself.
Yeah.
Because a lot of, even port de bras in ballet, if you think of it, they're gestures. What are gestures? They're body movements that communicate something. So if you're not choosing what you want to communicate through your movements, and you're just treating it like beep boop bop, robot, perfect exercise, perfect shapes, then that's impressive, but I think it's kind of missing the point.
Yeah.
Ballet as an art.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. I always think like artistry is about making choices. That's how I always view it. And I love seeing the different ways that a dancer will interpret what I'm asking of them when I ask them to, you know, but even I'm just like, that was good, but can you dance it? And then the way that they each decide to approach movement is just so beautiful because that's when it does become very unique for each of them. And that to me, that's an artist. You're training your artistry, which is another thing that I think has to be practiced. Practice making choices. Someone's going to tell you, a good coach is going to tell you, that was a good choice, that was a bad choice. So I think that's an also really beautiful thing about what we do. And just, yeah, I know when I think artist, immediately I thought of Cassandra Trineri in American Ballet Theater. Every time I see videos of her at R&J, I'm like, oh, that's it. She gets it.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it takes confidence, doesn't it, to make your own choices that could maybe someone won't like it. Maybe a choreographer will, sometimes they're kind of crazy and they snap. They're like, that's not what I asked for. So I'm wondering if in your own journey, making your own artistic choices has required like a level of boldness and confidence of you.
Absolutely.
Maybe you had to grow into.
Yeah, because you're putting yourself out there. It's scary to go like, this is what I would do with this. And that's coming from, in here or in here. And yeah, you kind of just hope people like it, or they're going to tell you it would read better if you do it this way. And just kind of learning your own body and what you mean how you mean to present yourself, and then how it actually shows, especially when you're telling stories. It's been a really cool thing to work with coaches on that.
Yeah, that's awesome. If I'm assuming you've experienced this, but I'm wondering if you've ever had some teachers or choreographers that are very much like, there's only one way to do it, and it's my way, and why would you do it any other way? And you kind of like, have you been in environments like that? And if so, how have you dealt with it?
Definitely like in the core when everyone has to be the same way, which makes sense. There's not a whole lot of like artistic choices that you get to make, or any really. It's just kind of what whoever in front says it is. But I think I've been lucky that all of the choreographers we work with at PMB are pretty collaborative, and they want to see how you would do it. With that being said, if they don't like how you do it, you probably won't make it in the piece. But I think, when we're workshopping things, but I think it is cool that when you put yourself out there and someone really likes it and it clicks, it's something really magical is made out of that. And I think honestly, it's okay. Like I've been cut from like 2 pieces after a workshop process or something. And I'm like, okay, they're a great choreographer, but clearly we weren't going to mesh. So I'm still very pro put yourself out there and go for the artistic choice.
Love. I'm so grateful dancers listening get to hear that, because I think it's just a great example of it takes confidence in embodying your own artistry and your own artistic choices. It takes confidence to put yourself out there and allow someone to tell you no, or to take you out of the piece. Like that takes some guts. That's vulnerable. And obviously in your journey, there have been clear rewards for being willing to take those risks. And for most of the dancers I coach, making a change like that, whether they're at the pre-professional level or already professional or wherever they're at, it requires getting out of that right, wrong, very dualistic mindset. There's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. Sure. Is there a spectrum of better and worse? Technically, yeah, because we do have codified technique. But when you're actually like creating a piece, that's meant to be art. So then the lines get a little more gray there. And so you have to exit that black and white kind of right or wrong rigid thinking and really put yourself out there to get this kind of reward.
Yeah.
But that's so cool that you're proof it works.
Put yourself out there, embarrass yourself a little bit.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
Well, are there any like closing pieces of advice or encouragements that you'd love to give to dancers watching, whether they are pre-professional, professional, or hey, maybe even some recreational dancers? I know a lot of them listen to these videos, so whatever
Honestly,
you feel inspired to share.
yeah. Whenever I watch like an open class or when I'm teaching the kids this week, it's just such a good reminder of like they're just having fun.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes we just need to remind ourselves to not take it so seriously. It's just ballet. And the only reason that you would do something as like grueling as this is because it's supposed to be fun. So just try to find those little moments of joy every day. That's my goal anyway. That's what I'm
Yes.
working towards.
Hey, I'm with you in that, sister. So thank you so much for everything you shared in this conversation. It's been really inspiring, and I can definitely tell you with confidence you are a beautiful example to other dancers and just the dance community at large. So
Thank you so
thank
much.
you for
That
sharing
feeling is
your-
so mutual. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. So I guess I will say thank you to everyone watching or listening, and we will put, or I will put your Instagram and whatever links that you want in the bio of this video. But is there any certain place that people should go to the internet to find you if they'd like to connect with you or follow you?
Oh yeah, I love Instagram. Anyone who slides into my DMs there, I usually answer. So if anyone has any like follow-up questions from this, I'd love to chat. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, I will put that in the description. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to
Thank you.
everyone for watching and listening. Bye bye.